Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Back, Hawkeye sports fans, to another episode of Punting is Winning. We are your hosts, JD and Keith. It's I think we got a little bit of the summer doldrums going on. Not a lot going on in the world of Hawkeye sports right now, but we'll cover what little there is. Put a little bow on the baseball season, and then wrap into some basketball news. A little bit of WNBA content, and then we'll wrap up with a little bit of football if there isn't much of anything to talk about. But first of all, let's get on with last week's question of the week. Last week's question of the week was, do you think Iowa will pass for at least 2,500 yards this coming season? And some say yes, some say no. So, I mean, that's pretty common, I think. I on the side of saying yes, I think they will.
I agree.
Do I think it'll be like 3,000? No. I think it will just be right around 2,500.
Yeah, I'm thinking like 2,780, something like that.
And honestly, I think if you're at that stage and it's, you've got a completion percentage in the mid 60s, I think that's a good sign, just simply because you're not having to throw as much. That means your running game has not failed you, and you have been in every game. You're not getting blown out. You're not playing from behind a lot. So I think that's a good range to be in if you're an Iowa offense. Now, obviously other teams would look at that and say, oh, well, that's, we throw for 4,000 yards. But, that's the Texas Techs of the world, and the teams that are just strictly the air raid offense, and it's air it out all the time. And you pass to set up the run, and you don't run a lot. Now, granted, Texas Tech does run a little bit more now than they have recently, but those are the teams you're going to see, and again, that's also, you're talking about, in my opinion, leagues that defense is optional in places. So you're going to have higher production on the passing side, just simply because of that. So like I said, I think if you're in the 25 to 2,700 range at Iowa and your completion percentage is mid 60s, that's a pretty good space to be in. That's definitely a huge upgrade from where we've been.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge upgrade. And I want to say my 2,780 that I said earlier is a little bit predicated on injuries. If we have a huge slew of injuries on the offensive line and they're not able to hold anybody back, then, all that goes out the window. Or if Gronowski goes down and we've got to rely on Stratton or
Hank Brown
or anybody else, I mean, you're obviously, those numbers are going to be skewed down probably. They're going to probably take some of the plays off the playbook and not allow them to, make longer throws down the field. They'll probably keep it closer and tighter, and that way, you can control that. Basically, running the ball by throwing the ball is basically what it is. Make short passes, let the running back do, or whoever the receiver is, gain your yards after catch. Yeah. But that all still counts. But I think if you're going to let Gronowski throw the ball, and if he stays healthy, I think 2,780 is a doable situation. I don't think that's a problem at all.
Yeah, and like I said, I would be very, very happy to be in that range. It just means that your offense has progressed, but you're not necessarily playing from behind.
Yeah, I just always want to see progress. Moving forward, getting better, showing something that you hadn't seen in a while. And I just want to see a little bit of progress every year. I'd like to see a huge jump like Indiana did last year, where they jumped right up there. But Indiana did bring a bunch of his players from his previous school, so they understood the system.
Right.
And it was just basically getting the newer guys that were already on the team that stayed to try to get them to understand and, perform like they're supposed to in that system. But I don't know if Iowa's going to have that prolific of a system ever. I don't, unless we have a new administration. completely new administration to allow that to happen. And I don't mean Beth Getz. I mean,
you're talking new coaching
Kirk.
staff.
Yes.
Yeah. And the one thing I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Iowa receivers as being, well, it's Iowa receivers, they wouldn't be starters on other teams. Well, that's a bunch of crap because they would be on other teams. There's talent there. It's just we've never had anybody that could get them the ball, and now we need to see that. And if the quarterback situation is taken care of, I think the wide receiver situation is taken care of, because I think the talent is there, and I think that there's that's definitely a much better room than it's been in the last few years. So the notion that a lot of these guys wouldn't start for other teams, I think is selling them really short.
Well, I agree that they on paper look better, but they still have to prove it. And as long as they're out there catching the balls, and even if they just catch it and don't really gain any yards, which would be the worst case scenario, but they still have to catch the ball. I don't want a guy out there that's running routes and the ball gets thrown to him and he's got hands of stone he can't catch.
Yeah,
that's what I'm concerned about, is that it takes a while to figure out that guy doesn't have the ability to play at this level. He just doesn't catch consistently enough. And I didn't see any of that from the spring game, the spring practice that we went to. I saw some really nice catches, some guys. Now, there were some guys that didn't participate in that we may see this fall. So, I'm going to hold out judgment a little bit at this point on whether I know we're upgraded. I'm pretty sure of that, but I'm just going to say, you still have to prove it on the field, and you have to show me, pretend like I'm from Missouri. I'm the show me state. You got to show me how you're doing.
Yeah. And we'll remains to be seen. So,
yeah.
All right. New question of the week. We'll talk a little bit about this later. Caitlin Clark's injury. But you go ahead, and if you want to ask the question.
Yeah. I don't know if some of you know this or not, but Caitlin Clark suffered a quadriceps strain and is likely out 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, from last Saturday to the week from this coming Saturday, there should be 2 weeks, they play 4 games. They play Washington at Washington, the Mystics, against Lucy Olson. Then they play at home with Connecticut, and then they have a home game back again with Washington before they go on the road to the Chicago Sky. My question is of those 4 games that Caitlin's likely out, what is Indiana's record for those 4 games? Do they go 4-0 and win them all? Do they go 3-1 and lose to Washington maybe? Do they actually fall on their face and lose to every one of them? I doubt they'll lose to Sky. Sky's terrible. I think they can beat the Sky. It depends
on the officiating.
3 people out of the crowd. Well, it does, and that is,
and that's terrible.
We'll talk about this in a little bit, but when we go over the WNBA stuff. But
let's wrap
that's
up
the question.
Stuff first.
Yeah, but that's the question. How will the Fever do in those 4 games when Caitlin's out? That's the question. Okay. Moving on to the remaining Iowa sport that was participating in the last week, the Iowa baseball team. As we spoke last week, Iowa had received the number 3 bid, the third bid, the third seed in pool play. So they were the top seed of Pool C, and they were to play Indiana and Rutgers, but not necessarily in that order. So let me explain something here. This pool play thing is new, and because of the extra teams, I am not a fan of this. I don't like the way this is set up. And the reason I say that is because when Indiana and Rutgers played the very first game of Pool C, Rutgers beat Indiana. So now Rutgers is 1-0, Indiana's 0-1. Rutgers then takes on Iowa. Iowa wins. Iowa now goes to 1-0. Rutgers is 1-1. Indiana still has to play Iowa. But Indiana has a loss. So regardless of how Iowa did in the Indiana game after the Rutgers game, it didn't matter. because Iowa was the higher seed. And if they all come out with 1-1 records, the higher seed goes automatically. So that game with Indiana, after they won Rutgers game because of how it's set up, didn't matter. That game didn't make any difference other than your overall record. So they were automatic. After they beat Rutgers 4-3, they knew they were already advancing. They've got to do something different. This is a bad situation. And
because theoretically, based on the results, Rutgers probably should have advanced.
But because they went
Iowa. Based off the fact that Rutgers beats Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa beats Rutgers by 1.
Right.
Indiana beats Iowa by 5.
Iowa didn't put any effort into it. They already knew they were advancing. Still
lost 5-0.
Yeah.
So by the reality of that, Rutgers probably is the team that should have advanced based off of.
Did you see who Iowa pitched on that Indiana game?
I didn't watch any of it.
Somebody that's so far down the line it didn't even matter at this point. Somebody that's like I'm not even sure if it was a Guerin, I think, but it was the other one. There's 2 Guerins on the team.
It wasn't Blake.
One of them is a pitcher, and I don't think he pitched much this year. They started him.
Okay.
So, I mean, if they really thought it was something that was important, they would have pitched Savoy, or they would have, brought somebody else in.
Savary.
Savary, okay.
I don't doubt that, but based solely on the result of what happened on the field, I mean, in a perfect world or a true life world, Rutgers should have been the team that advanced based off of those results. Now, again, you're right. Things would have been different or could have been different had they, still had something to play for in that game against Indiana. If it was like, we have to win this game against Indiana, or at least not get beat by more than 1.
Well, if Rutgers would have beat Iowa, they were in automatically, 2-0. Everybody else has a loss. They were in, period. All they had to do was beat Iowa. No question about it. So
and Iowa,
they were
darn
1 run away from tying and 2 runs away from winning.
Yep. No, I mean, Iowa just basically hit a wall and just big thud at the end of the season. 2-9-1 in the last 11 or 12 games. Not going to get much done.
Yeah. Now they finished the season 33-22, and they lost in the semifinals to UCLA 9-3. It was there's not much to talk about. They were down 9-2 and scored 1 in the 9th, so it was And I think
there's no at-large bid for them.
No. And I think when I was thinking and looking at that, I'm like, UCLA, the way Iowa's been playing, I don't see much good coming out of this one. And it ended up being 9-3, so it really wasn't much good coming out of it. But I do want to shout out to the Iowa baseball seniors, and I'll list them here. There's not very many. Reese Buter, right-handed pitcher. Connor Hennings, outfielder. Andy Nelson, that's going to hurt a little. Utility player. Ben Wilmus, infielder, that's also going to hurt. Mitch Wood, utility player. Jack Whitlock, right-handed pitcher. That's going to hurt. Chaz Wheatley, right-handed pitcher. Daniel Rogers, utility player. Brant Hogue, a left-handed pitcher. Merrick Matthews, who I know his dad, is a utility player. Daniel Wright, a right-handed pitcher. Bryson Walker, left-handed pitcher. William Pearson, a right-handed pitcher. Benjamin Detay, left-handed pitcher. And Sam Hart, a right-handed pitcher. They're going to lose a lot of pitchers, seems like. But that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah, I said based on the end of the season results, I think they need to upgrade the pitching staff.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. But there you go. That's the wrap up on the baseball season, and hopefully Rick can get some recruiting in, and maybe some of the guys from this season that are underclassmen could step up. And they have some good pitching coming back. Savory, and Overmuller is coming back. He's just a junior this year, so he would have a
come back.
Year.
I mean, they could both get drafted, and they could go on too. So
they could, yeah. But hopefully they do decide to come back, and I think Iowa will be pretty decent with what they played, who they have playing all year. A lot of younger guys, and they have the potential to be right back at the top of the league again next year.
Yeah. No.
They just have to gel early. Those southern trips are a good way to measure talent and get some reps in, but they
need to hold it together as the season
also
progresses.
Can mess up your schedule as far as wins and losses. And your RPI too if you don't play anybody good. I don't know.
Well,
good luck with that.
Yeah. Still a 30-win season. That's I know that there's some talk. I watched a couple of podcasts that is it time to shut down Iowa baseball? Hell no, it's not.
No, God, I hope not. That's
the talking heads of the Keith Murphy and whoever he does his podcast with. I think they just try to be controversial about some of that stuff anyway.
I can see some of their point when it comes to NIL, and you want to throw all your NIL to the players that are the revenue generating sports.
Yeah.
But since baseball is not really a revenue generating sport, even though I think they had great crowds all year.
Oh yeah.
At Iowa. So, but they're not going to get, 5,000-6,000 people in there. They're going to get, 1,500 to 3,000 max, I'd say, all total people walking in. But that's not going to make a lot of money.
But I just don't want them to turn into another.
I don't either.
State where you drop a sport that, and maybe it's just a bias of my own because I love baseball and all, but I'd hate to see them drop it.
I would too. I would hate to see it. It was some of the best years of my life playing collegiate baseball. So, I hate to see it go away. I hope it doesn't.
You want to talk a little basketball?
Yeah, men's basketball picked up a commitment this week. I think on Wednesday. They picked up a transfer guard from Florida International. His name is Ashton Williamson. He's 6'2". He averaged 7. He's a freshman last year, so he'll have 3 years of eligibility if I don't say that. 7.3 points a game, 2.5 rebounds, 2.7 assists per game. He averaged 24 minutes a game for Florida International last year. Again, he has 3 seasons of eligibility remaining. He shot just under 40% from the field, 33% from 3, and I'd like to see this better, a 67.6% from the free throw line, although for a freshman, that's probably not too bad.
It's 2 out of every 3.
He did shoot 85 three-pointers as a freshman, which is a lot for a freshman to shoot three-pointers.
Yeah.
But here's the kind of the knock on him at this point, based on his stats. He averages 2.7 assists, but also 1.9 turnovers a game. So his assist to turnover ratio is not good. That will need improvement. At this point, Iowa has used 11 scholarships.
And I have 4 left. For 4 spots on the team left, I guess.
Yeah, if they decide to use them. And they don't have to use them. I don't
know that they need to.
I'm kind of that way too. I don't know. You just go with what you've got, and then you've got openings.
Next few years, see what you can get.
Yeah. Once you've established your foothold and you have a good season, there'll be people wanting to knock down your door to play for you, hopefully.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know. Basketball is kind of at kind of a standstill. Other than that, nothing on the women's side is really noteworthy this week.
The only noteworthy women's aspect is the Caitlin Clark aspect for the WNBA for the Fever, which we can talk a little bit about that.
We did allude to this. We did allude to this earlier. Caitlin is out for 2 weeks for a quad strain.
Expected to be out for 2 weeks.
Expected to be out 2 weeks. That is kind of an injury that if you don't rest it and get it healed up, it will kind of linger throughout the season and be kind of a bothersome situation. So hopefully they get her some treatment, let the trainers, staff, and that kind of those people work on her and get her back as healthy as possible. And don't risk anything. I'm thinking just, if you even got extended beyond 2 weeks, let's get her healthy so that she can make a run towards the end of the season healthy and not getting banged up.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time she's ever missed time.
Yeah. And something else last week that she did that she's never done before is not make a 3-pointer in a game. You have to go all the way back to her sophomore year at Iowa. And it was like, I don't remember what they said, 140 games or something.
Yeah, crazy.
That she'd made a 3-pointer. And then she was threatening to not make a 3-pointer against the Liberty the other day, but she did hit 2. But they were kind of late. And that one at the end of the third quarter was a thing of beauty.
It just makes you wonder if that quad strain hasn't been there for a couple of games and it's just been affecting her, and she just kind of has to say, I need to shut it down for a couple of weeks to make sure that this doesn't become a bigger issue throughout the year, and that it's been bothering her. It's hard to say because she's such a competitor that she's not going to tell you when she's hurt unless she's, kind of one of those. She's kind of like that player that she's not going to tell you she's hurt unless there's a bone sticking out.
Yeah.
And then she'd still want to be in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, 100%.
I think
she's a gamer.
Shows a lot that she's letting them sit her for 2 weeks. I think that's kind of the way to look at it. I don't know that the Fever had a lot of say in it, because I think if she says, no, I'm going to play, she's going to play.
But if she's bad enough that she says, let's shut it down for 2 weeks before I get healed up, then it must be bad, fairly bad.
Yeah. So.
Let's talk about kind of the thing that, first of all, let me ask you this question before we get too far. So Caitlin's out for 2 weeks. At this point, they're saying 2 weeks. Okay. Are you going to watch the Fever for the 4 games that she's out?
Probably not.
Are you a fan of her, or are you a fan of the team? I guess that's the question.
I'm a fan of her. I can watch the team because of her. But to be completely honest, the only game that I have seen so far this year was the first one against the Sky.
Oh, okay.
I totally spaced off the other night that they were on when they lost to the Dream, and then I didn't even realize they played again that quickly when they beat them in Atlanta. I just I don't know. I'm just not ready for it yet. I don't know. It's
well, you still got baseball. It's hot and heavy.
And that's the thing. When your baseball team is actually decent, and you tend to want to follow that more than anything else, because that's the hot sport at this point of the year anyway. I mean, basketball is, when you throw in the WNBA, basketball's 24/7, 365 anymore. And I don't know that I have that in me right now anymore. Obviously, I'm not an NBA person. I don't care about the NBA other than, I'd pay attention to, Luka Garza or Keegan Murray or Chris Murray or whoever was playing, whatever the case may be. But
we follow the Hawks.
Yeah, I don't. If I followed a specific team, it'd probably be Golden State, just because I followed Golden State back when BJ Armstrong played there. And, I'm not a bandwagoner. I'm not jumping on just because Steph Curry took them to the championship or anything like that. Nope. I go back to the late 80s, early 90s. I kind of feel like I have to preface that by saying I'm more of a fan of players than I am of teams. So like when BJ was with the Bulls, I like Bulls. I follow the Hawkeyes. I don't care about anybody else. I really don't care about the NBA. I don't care about the players in the NBA outside of the ones that played for Iowa. I don't follow them. I couldn't tell you who's good, obviously LeBron, everybody knows LeBron James, but outside of that, I know Oklahoma City was the best team coming out of the West. I couldn't tell you what their record was. I couldn't tell you a player that plays for them.
Yeah, me either.
I don't care. It's not, unless they have a Hawkeye playing for them, I don't care.
Yeah, and the thing too with Iowa, being a smaller population state, nobody wants to play professional basketball in Iowa. So we don't, as a population, as a fan base, we don't have anything to really root for local that we can say, we're going to grab this team and they're ours and this is how we're going to be. Just like, you're either Iowa State fan or a Hawkeye fan, and that's, you kind of grab a hold of whichever team you like and you hang on and you're a fan of that team. Well, we don't have a pro NBA team, so we have to go out and around the area And at that point, to me, just pick a team. It doesn't matter if it's Seattle or New Orleans or Philadelphia or whoever. Just grab a team and stick with them. And, if they're good, watch them. If they aren't, you still feel like you need to watch them, go ahead. But here's my situation. The WNBA, here's what I'll probably do. I will still tune in, but I will definitely not be paying as much attention as I did with Caitlin. I will probably
I'll keep trying
looking at my phone and watching kind of in the background. That's what it'll be for me.
I'll track the scores and I'll track the, the standings or whatever, but I don't know that I will spend the hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours to sit and watch a game. I've got other things to do. I mean, the Mets are on, or in our case, the Yankees for her, whatever the case may be. We'll watch that, or we'll watch shows that we have recorded that we say, once we get through all the regular season finales of all the regular shows, we go to the streaming services and, okay, here's the series that we need to catch up on. So that's kind of what we do. And we don't spend our time watching television 24/7. I mean, honestly, our TV is probably on for about 2, maybe 2.5 hours a day at the most. And I know some people probably think that's a lot, but how we grew up, TV was on 24/7 practically. Yeah. And, I can sit here after the day, midday, late day, whatever. Wife goes to the gym. I don't even turn the TV on. I couldn't tell you what is going on TV. I couldn't tell you what's going on in the news. Any of that stuff is, frankly, the news is disappointing and TV is boring anymore. There's nothing. Yeah. They don't make shows like they used to.
No, they don't.
So,
when we talk about the WNBA, which I'm going to try to get to the end of this here, but I think one of the things that people talk about more and more, especially lately, is how horrible the refereeing is. and I have to agree.
It's too fast for them.
The officiating is just brutal. And I also wonder too if there's some kind of and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it just seems like the Fever are getting a lot of calls against them that they never got before. And
It'll be interesting to see if those calls change while she's out.
Yeah.
If the games are called a little bit different. Because watching highlights of games that she's been in, she gets mugged. She has for the last 2 years. She did for the last 2.5 years at Iowa as well. And nothing gets called. And then all of a sudden, there's a phantom foul called on her where, there was one of, I think it was against, I don't know, who did they play? The Liberty, maybe? And the girl just basically fell over when she got juked out of her shorts and foul on Caitlin Clark. I'm like, she didn't even touch her. I mean, it was an anticipation foul. We talked about this a long time ago when used to watch Iowa games, but watching an Iowa basketball game, and you get so frustrated with fouls being called because they're anticipating a foul in the situation. And that's what they're doing there. And I think it's less about the anticipation of a foul and more about the blatant flopping to get the call, and the officials going, yep, I looked and seen who that was against, so yeah, it's a foul. Yeah. You said that you don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but there is definitely the WNBA does not know how to market their product. They don't know how to protect their stars, and they don't know where their bread's buttered. And they're going to, quite honestly, if I was Caitlin Clark, I'd probably sink some money into a developmental league, and it would be bigger than the WNBA. Because once she would leave, I think the star power is gone and nobody cares again. That's a biased opinion, but that's the way I feel.
One of the things I did notice, and I've seen it a couple of times this year, when a player is going up for a shot, and it's a close play where they're either going to be fouled or maybe fouled. I've noticed too a couple times that the referees don't blow their whistle until the basket is either made or missed. And sometimes they'll call, and I've noticed this especially the other day, when there was a close bang bang play under the basket where it's like a layup and somebody's coming to go after them. And it looked to me like there was one play in particular. It looked to me like they went up, initiated the contact on the offense. The offense initiated the contact. They missed the shot. The referee wasn't going to blow a whistle until the shot fell off. And then when the shot wasn't made, then he blows his whistle and calls the foul.
Is that the one that decided the game?
No, that was a different one, but that was earlier in the game. But it just seems like that's what's happening, is they're waiting to see if the ball goes in or not before they decide to blow the whistle.
Yeah. I think
that's not right. You can't do that.
I think it's just the powers that be are, like I said, they don't know where their bread's buttered, and they don't know how to protect their stars.
Do you think gambling's involved? You think gambling has a bearing on, if you're favored by 1.5 and you're 1 point down, and the Vegas is going to lose a little money, or the other way? I mean,
it's hard to state because, let's be honest, prior to 2 years ago, we didn't care. We didn't watch it. So we don't know if the officiating has just been that bad in general for its entire time, or if it's just more pronounced and they don't know how to take care of their stars. And they are trying to send a message of, you're not bigger than the league. Well, sorry, she is bigger than the league. She is the league.
Yes,
she's what causes you guys to have the money to keep the league going at this point.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I don't want to say this to be biased, but nobody's going to care. You're still going to have some loyal fans that are going to watch these teams, but you're not going to see 17 to 18 to 20,000 people filling an arena to watch a game for the WNBA. You might see 4,000 to 5,000 people, which is still a pretty decent crowd, but that's not going to be to the extent it is now.
That's not what Caitlin brings in.
Yeah. She brings in the 17,000s. The other teams bring in the 3 to 4.
They have to move they have to move the game to a bigger arena to accommodate everybody that wants tickets.
And quite honestly, once the WNBA figures out that's, I shouldn't say figures it out because they know it. Once they embrace it, instead of having this, for lack of a better term, the good old boys network that goes on there, they're going to struggle. And if I was her, I'd be like, I'll take my talents to Europe and make more money.
Yeah. Not that she needs the money.
No, not at all. But it's just, I would send a message to him if it was me. And I had that power. I was the Michael Jordan of the WNBA, like she is. I would send a message of, you don't want to do this the right way, I'll go play in Germany, or I'll play in Italy. I love Italy. I'll go play there. And you can kiss your revenue goodbye because there's no generational talents that are going to match her.
The way I understand is the NBA is actually funding the WNBA. I don't know why the NBA doesn't go to the WNBA and say, hey, I know we're funding you and we're keeping you afloat. You need to make sure that Caitlin Clark, the face of the league, doesn't get treated like this. I want her to be treated absolutely 100% fair and honest. That's all we ask.
Yeah.
Don't go after
preferential
her.
treatment by any means.
No.
I just don't be
biased against her.
Blatantly obvious about it.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is. So,
it is.
We could talk this to death because I feel that that's how the league runs, and they just, I think a lot of people would agree with me. A lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine.
We'll touch quickly here on football. It's kind of a dead period for football, but June 1st is coming up, and that is the day that allegedly, now we'll see, that Mark Gronowski is allowed to let it loose, so to speak.
Full release to play.
Full release, full practice. you're done. You're out of the medical issue and you can proceed as you wish.
I think that just means throwing and running plays. Obviously, it's going to still be bubble wrapped.
Oh yeah, I don't suspect that they'll be running him into
they're not going to allow
bad
him to
situations
get back there, but they're not going to allow him, put him in a situation where he's going to run the risk of an injury again. It's let's get him warmed up, let's get the arm loose and working some plays and running some 7-on-7s and that kind of stuff.
Do you remember last year when Cade McNamara had been having all these leg issues and he missed part of the season, the year before?
It was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
The summer between, he was playing softball. They were going out and doing like barnstorming tours with playing softball against, I think Iowa State even, they played against the men. The football team had select players that played.
Okay.
And I always wondered, why on God's green earth would you put that kid out there with bad legs that or he's probably still recuperating and healing, and you had him out there playing softball and running at the in the outfield, and that just, to me, it's just like, are you begging to get him hurt again? I mean, obviously you've got to let the kid play, but somewhere, but you got to be careful on where you put him. You don't want to throw him into situations like that. Just say, okay, go play, knock yourself out, have fun. You still have to remember, he's here to be the quarterback of the football team. If he goes out and slides into third base and breaks an ankle in July, he's done.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand it either. I would be overly cautious, especially with somebody coming back from an injury. But you've got to take the training wheels off of them at some point. But you do it in a situation where it's, if it happens, it's going to happen in the sport you're playing. It's not going to happen in a pickup basketball game or a softball game or anything like that.
Right.
It's kind of like you remember the movie The Program?
Vaguely.
The star quarterback, he was the Heisman Trophy candidate and all that. And he was going out and doing stupid stuff on his motorcycle, and the coach took it away from him. He said, you can do stupid stuff. If it's going to be stupid stuff, it's going to be happening on the field. It's not going to happen because you wrecked your motorcycle.
Exactly.
Same situation, to me.
I just hope they don't put Mark Gronowski with a bad arm, out in the outfield where he's got to make a big, long throw and he's not really warmed up for it, or he's not prepared to make a throw like that.
I can't see him doing that. I can't see him.
I don't even want to see him out. I don't even see him want to do it. I stay
at this
in
point,
the facility.
You're football oriented at this point. You're getting into June. You're getting into the summer workouts, and then July comes around. You're starting that summer, getting into that summer camp mode of, August hits. You're ready to go. So you're basically 2 months away. So I can't see them doing something stupid like that. And maybe they learned their lesson from that.
Did I see on Facebook, somebody said, is it today or yesterday? I can't remember when I saw it. 96 days till the first game.
Could be.
I don't know if it was today or yesterday. 96 days seems like a lot, but it's not really.
I look at the date right now. It's the 26th of May, and I'm thinking to myself, I was in Chicago the 1st of May, and that seemed like last week to me.
Yeah.
And that was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It does seem like, because I was saying something about last night, we were talking to neighbors. I said something, last weekend we did this. Margo goes, it's 2 weekends ago. Really? Okay. 2 weekends ago then.
Yeah.
Just goes by quick.
Yeah. We have, our friends have game night on, typically once a month, and we looked last night and it had been 6 weeks, and it didn't seem like it had been that long ago that we were together. So yeah, time does get away from you pretty quick.
Yeah.
Speaking of time,
okay.
I think we've pretty much covered everything at this point.
Yeah.
I agree.
We can wrap her up.
Yeah.
Kind of a dead summer podcast, and
Yeah,
we'll start figuring things out later. We'll get some games and we'll start making predictions on this, that, the other. We'll do kind of some of the stuff similar to what we did last summer when it was the dead zone.
We'll get something figured out to cover some time here. It is definitely a lull in the action, so to speak. So, but as we always say, if you like the content, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe. Doesn't cost anything to subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Shorts. We have all that. I think some people need to remember that we do have a full-length podcast and not just the shorts.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of shorts videos watched.
Yeah,
the
get a lot of
viewership on those.
But also, we do have our merch store out there if you're interested in buying anything on there. Good quality stuff, in my opinion. Proceeds will go to the Swarm to help benefit the NIL. So anything that you buy, every little bit's going to help the team, whether that be basketball, women's basketball, football, wrestling, whatever sport it is. We can earmark it to whatever we want it to be. So just you make the purchase, we'll put the money to the NIL. So other than that, that's all I've got for the week. We'll wrap it up on that and get out of here on a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.